Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me, the Loremaster, as I bring you my rundown of the top 3 lists from the 2023 Triple Crown Wargaming Derby Deathmatch. If you saw any of the live streams, you'll have seen some fantastic games going on. If you were at the event, it was an absolute cracker as ever, and considerably cooler in the venue than the previous year, which certainly made for a more comfortable atmosphere for everyone, I'd suggest. So I'm not going to hang around. I'm going to get stuck straight in. 3 different factions making the top 3. Very cool. 1 Highlander list. And in general, the lists are... Well, it's interesting that they're quite different to the sort of lists that we might have seen last year. This year, there's some crossover with the second GT in particular, but certainly quite different to some of the lists last year. But there's still lots of common offenders, shall we say. So we're going to go 3rd place to start with. That's Jonathan Gardner's High Elves, and Jonathan rocked in with a comp score of -2, and really. He went hardcore to the floor with this army list. 10 negative choices, or well, -10 in terms of negative comp, and then 8 positives to swing that back up to that -2. So a list of extremes. And it was a weekend where there was some really kind of extreme decisions on comp that seemed to have paid off for people this time, which is great to see something different. So his army was led by Alariel, Avatar of Isha. That's the N times Alariel. She's basically the same as the army book Alariel, but she gives the 5 upward save to units within 12, I believe, instead of the unit she joins. Very competent general. Let's make no mistakes. He had Corhill, and in his hero slot for the cheeky plus, and a level 1 mage on high magic. So I imagine that's just to pump a ward save somewhere. 21 archers in the core for that cheeky plus, 5 Illyrian Reavers, 25 Lovern Seaguard, full command and shields. So he's got a lot of shooting in his core, and I think that's probably going to have worked out really well for him in terms of chaff clearance. And obviously when you are looking to only win by kind of a 100-point victory margin, it does make a huge difference having a big chunk of shooting in your core. Shooting can do really good things that perhaps it doesn't see as much kind of power in a 20-0 system as it does in perhaps a 100-point bracket, where you can steal something and then kind of sit on that with defensive play. Moving into the special slot, he's certainly a man after my own heart. There's a lot about this list that is similar to the type of high elf lists I like to run. So he's got 19 Phoenix Guard, a little less than I'd want, but I obviously got to make some cuts for his points, with a champion, a standard, and the Razor standard, so no musician. And then he had 25 White Lions, full command of the Brandywell Dragon, that 405-point unit I take everywhere with me. And then in his rare slot, he had Frostheart Phoenix, and then an Arcane Phoenix from the Monsters Arcanum supplement. And he took Omen of Hope on that, and Omen of Sacrifice, and Cleansing Flames. So this was quite clever, and something that we probably will have to look at, because the Omen of Hope means that he can get the +2 for no BSB, but have a reroll on leadership checks, because the Omen of Hope kind of acts as a BSB. In that way, it confers hold your ground to units within 12. So very good, very clever, I must say. Nice little spot to get around the system, and we'll probably have to close that loophole, Jonathan, naughty boy. But overall, yeah, really, really cool. The Arcane Phoenix, when I spoke to Jonathan, he said it wasn't the best for him, but obviously having that kind of BSB in there, it was useful. He had the Omen of Sacrifice as well, so that high elves get Frenzy within range as well, which is awesome. So suddenly 2 attack White Lions, really kicking out the damage, and he said that really helped out with the way that his list kind of won combats and went through stuff, and I can really see that, and that does make that smaller unit of even the Phoenix Guard much more punchy, because you could run them 5 by sort of 4 with the wizard in there to give him a threat ward save, would probably be what I'd be thinking, and go, actually, they're still kicking out 10, 21 attacks, which is pretty punchy if they're within range of that Omen of Sacrifice. So Overall, I can see the positives. The list is very hard to break down. He's got the White Lions with the ward save from Malarial, the Phoenix Guard with the inbuilt ward save. The two monsters are not the easiest to kill. The Arcane Phoenix doesn't have a ward, but it does have the ability to come back to life. The Frostheart, we know how tough they are to get rid of. He can put Core Hill in the Phoenix Guard to make them stubborn, so you've got to kill that guy. So actually, you look at this list and you can see why it punches really well in a kind of 100-point bracket, because it's got some shooting and good spells. It can nick points that way. When you do get in, it's actually quite teethy in combat as well, but crucially, it doesn't give away a lot of victory points, so I can see how it made a top 3 finish. Into our second place list now, and it's a familiar sight. I think Jonathan took that list, by the way, to the second GT in June, and this list was the winner of the GT in June. It's the same list as far as I can see, which is Joby Bibby's Empire Army. So he stuck with it. This one was a 0 it comped in at. And we'll run through it again, but if you've seen us talk about the Derby, if you've seen us talk about the GT2, as I might call it now, army list, you'll know a bit about this one. But he had Battle Wizard Lord level 4 in the Law of Life with Sivajir's Hex Scroll, the Bibby signature as I call it. Battle Wizard level 2 on Law of Light. Captain of the Empire Battle Standard Bearer full plate armour with the Enchanted Shield and the Luckstone. Another Captain of the Empire with full plate armour, a lance, a shield on a Pegasus with the Dawnstone and the Dragon Helm. Quite hard to shift. 2 Master Engineers and a Warrior Priest with light armour. So he's really spent the points on characters in this list. Quite happy to throw. Although those Empire characters are cheap, when you've got kind of 5 or 6 of them like that, it does add up. His core is what I'd call kind of quite traditional Empire core. He's got 49 Halberdiers with Musician and Standard Bearer with a detachment of 5 Archers. A few more than I would take, but again, cool. It's because my Knights Inner Circle, I tend to take Steel Standard. He hasn't. He's got a unit of 10 Knights the Inner Circle with Lances, Full Command and the Gleaming Pennant. So I imagine he's sort of worried about them getting too far away from his battle line. Smart move. Special, he had 3 Demigryph Knights with a Standard Bearer, which I thought was an interesting choice, but worked out really well for him. A Great Cannon and 3 units of 5 Pistoliers, and again, exactly the same story when I was talking to Joby at the end of Derby Deathmatch as it was at the GT. He felt the Pistoliers were crucial for him in giving away, in stopping him giving away crucial points, and I can see it. Again, I can see why this is going to work really well in this 100-point bracketing, because he's got a steam tank and 2 Hellblaster volley guns in the rare slot to round it off. So he's got the 2 cannons that can go out there and score big points. They can deck a monster or 2, and you're potentially 500 points up. Your opponent's got a lot to do. Even if you give away all those Pistoliers, you're still ahead because you've only given away 270 points because they're only 90 points a unit, which is ace. Lots of control. 2 volley guns with the Engineers. They're going to punch through stuff. So suddenly the fact that those Demigryphs maybe aren't the biggest unit, or the fact that really his combat presence is only those Halberdiers and the Knights, is a lot less of a concern when you've stripped like a rank or 2 ranks off with your volley guns. And again, I know that he played quite defensively for a lot of the missions on this. In terms of Blood and Glory, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So not the worst Blood and Glory, but not the best. Certainly, if I was thinking about Jonathan's list, horrible list to fight on Blood and Glory, that, because all of those, you got a Lariel in that unit of White Lions and the Phoenix Guard. That's 4. You've got to kill one of those 2 tough units to actually break his list, which is ace. This one, a little more susceptible to Blood and Glory, but you've got to get to him, and he's going to do. And your flying monster's the thing that's going to have the best chance of getting to him. He's going to kill them really quickly. Unbreakable steam tanks can be parked into stuff. He's got a cap assist for going to get enemy artillery or enemy wizards, or killing enemy chaff. To save his artillery to do their job against the units. It's a really strong all-round list. Little bit defensive for my liking, but I know it worked ace at the GT because of the very monster-heavy meta, and there was still plenty of monsters at Derby Deathmatch this year. If you didn't have such a monster meta, would it drop games? I think there's potential, but the monster meta has been strong this year, and Joby's come in and said, well, I'm going for the anti-meta. And I say that he's still got 2 volley guns, which are ace against everything. So a -2 was third place, a 0 in second, and the winning list was none other than Scott Seckold and his Wood Elves. This one's another -2. So again, it does appear that the minus lists with a more dominant factor this year. It's possibly not a shock. So this one, again, big minus. He's gone for a Lario Incarnate of Life leading his Wood Elf army. This is saying new for this year, so it's great to see it being used. -7 for that bad boy though. So he's had to make that up. He's got no scroll, no BSB, and he's got the sisters on an eagle. So his hero slot is just Nastra and Arahan on Gwyndolor. His core, he had 1, 2, 3, 4 units of Glade Guard. Bit of a mixture in there though. So he had a 10-man unit with Arcane Bodkins, a 10-man unit with Truthlight, a 10-man unit with a Standard Bearer, the Gleaming Pendant, and Truthlight, and then a 10-man unit with Moonfire Shafts and a Standard Bearer. So that's where he's gone for that. And again, really, this list is a lot of shots, right? And he took this list to the GT and didn't quite make the top cut. And again, I think because it's the sort of list that denies quite a bit. If you've got flaming attacks, it does start to struggle because the bubble of the regen is the thing that keeps all these very squishy units alive. But it doesn't have the big combat punch. It does struggle to kill the big blocks as well, particularly if they're decent strength and you can't fall back on just dwellers in it. And so I can see why it just fell out of the top sort of 3. I think he might have been 4th or 5th at the GT, but it's really excelled at this event because I say it's not quite the same list actually. I'm being slightly disingenuous there. I think he's made slight changes, slightly more shots in this version, but he's got 2 units of 10 deep with scouts with Hagbane and Standard Bearers, which is interesting to put his standards on his scouts. 6 Wild Riders with shields and Banner of Eternal Flame on the Standard Bearer, no other command. 2 Great Eagles and a unit of 20 Weight Watchers, which when I watched the games he seemed to have a Lario in. That's a huge 400 point bad boy unit, and I think it speaks volumes to the quality of his play that unit didn't actually get killed. Because it is only T3, as much as it's got a 4-up regen. It's a ton of points, and I'd be thinking that would be something I'd want to go after, but I think that speaks volumes to how good he was. Big risks in this list because unlike the High Elf list that sort of still had a reroll another way, there's no second chances on this list in terms of if he fails a leadership check. Now that said, Ilario's leadership 10, so great, but no scroll, so again, potential risks with really, really scary spells you need to stop. I think it's, as I say, it speaks volumes to how well Scott played his list over the weekend to be able to come out without one awful moment. And I think it also goes a little bit of a way to dispelling some of those myths that I see a lot about 8th edition, like, wow, one spell ends the game. I'm like, well, actually, when you're starting to play 100 point brackets, one spell doesn't just end the game. You can lose like 1,000 points and still come back because you've only got to get 1,100 points to win. So, interesting, I'd say, really interesting list. Very avoidancy, obviously. Lots of flexible movement, lots of scouts, and then you shoot off the kind of the fastest and nastiest threats first, and then you whittle down the rest later. Very good, I would say, very, very good for Blood and Glory. You can end that mission very quickly with a list like this because you can hit the kind of kingpin target, the one that's going to get you the result, very quickly with a load of shots and spells, and put it in the dirt. So again, not a shock that Scott's quality shone through with this list, and fantastic to see Wood Elves taking out the event. 3 different armies in the top 3 again. Yeah, not a lot else I can say. Interesting list, very different. Would love to see. I should have got the other list, the version of each of the GT, to see where the changes were, because he did well at the GT, but he said to me he did make some changes to get more shots in, which I think probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he had some Eternal Guard in there at the GT, which is just going to help with the sort of 20-0 scoring versus this, which fits much nicer in the 100 point brackets. And that's it. That is your top 3 for Derby Deathmatch. Very interesting and different types of lists from the top 2. Perhaps not quite as different a list from third place, although I think a really clever version of the 2-block 2-monster High Elf list that is such a dominant force. So all props to Jonathan for coming up with it, and I'm living vicariously through his High Elf success because I love them, but it just doesn't work the same for me. And that's it. Thank you for joining me on this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you check out all of our other content on YouTube, or head over to triplegroundwargaming.com, where you can become a Knight of the Realm and get another 300, 400 videos for you to peruse your way through at your leisure. For those of you attending the event in September, the narrative Araby-based event, I look forward to seeing you all there at Araby Ablaze. Otherwise, check out the channel for more exciting content to come.
Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. Then head over to triplecrownwargaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright? Do it for